I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death. So there is a mortal wound. And his deadly wound was healed, and some in the world wondered after the beast. Oh no, it doesn't say that. It says, all the world wondered after the beast. Revelation 13:7 says, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. That's scary. Rome will control the entire world.
The same characteristics found in Daniel 7 once again serve to describe this beast of Revelation 13. The period of rule, this time denoted in months, is identical, and thus students of prophecy who use the historicist method of prophetic interpretation conclude that this is a description of the Catholic institution that now, according to greater revelation, receives a wound that later on is healed. When this wound was given in 1798, at the time of General Berthier's entrance into Rome, the captivity of the Pope and the abolishment of the papal government, most observers believed at that time that it signaled the end of Roman Catholic rule. But in 1929, Mussolini and Gaspari signed an historic pact that once again returned to Papal Rome her sovereign nation status. The implications of these events and the prophetic revelations of chapter 13 are hard to avoid. Not only does Papal Rome rule for the 1,260 42-month period, but its authority is once again revived, not only through the actions of Mussolini and Gaspari in 1929, but through the help of another beast, a power that arises out of the earth and causes the whole earth to follow Rome in her new revived form. Many believe that the identity of this second beast can only be applied to the United States of America, the new Atlantis of the mystics that would bring about the final realization of a new world order. Revelation chapter 13 verse 11 states, and I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and it had two horns like that of a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon.
Well, let's go to the early reformers. These people were magnificent. I have so much respect for these early reformers. John Wesley, in his notes on Revelation 13, written in 1754, says, the two-horned beast, he is not yet come, though he cannot be far off. For he is to appear at the end of the 42 months of the first beast. Now the reformers all clearly said, Rome is the Antichrist. They were watching it. And now they say, well, this other beast can't be far off. Let's have a look at the rise of the United States and see if it fits. The Declaration of Independence was in 1776. The independence was acknowledged by the nations of the world in 1783. In 1787, a Constitution of the United States was framed. 1791, the Bill of Rights was added. And in 1798, the very year that Rome receives a mortal wound, France, the mightiest power in Europe at that time, recognizes the independence of the United States. So the same nation that gives the papacy a mortal wound, in the same year recognizes the United States.
America was founded as a Christian nation, but it was also founded as an occult nation. And there have always been two parallel forces here in America. One the Christian, one the occult, dating back into the 1600s. And until you understand that, you can't understand anything going on in the world today.
From the very beginning, those who were trying to establish the nation of America and formulate the laws that would govern her people were caught between two agendas. The one agenda had lamb-like qualities that sought to avoid repeating the oppressive history of a Europe ruled by papal religio-political authority. The other agenda, although it outwardly preached liberation, was striving to set up an occult-inspired order that would finally lead all nations back to Rome. In Rome, all the mystery religions, from ancient Babylon and Egypt to the various other pagan cultures whose spiritual roots went back to the Tower of Babel, found their fulfillment. In her and under her supervision, and only under these circumstances, would man be able to experience 1,000 years of peace, the fulfillment of the Aquarian dream and its new Atlantean society. Rome fought hard to destroy the lamb-like attributes of the American Constitution. Through her secret army, the Jesuits, and the various other sinister organizations she controlled, she infiltrated American society and government, and where necessary fomented discord, controversy, and division. President Abraham Lincoln said of her involvement in the Civil War,
"The Civil War would never have been possible without the sinister influence of the Jesuits. We owe it to popery that we now see our land reddened with the blood of our noblest sons." Through all their councils, theologians, and canon laws, their conscience orders them to burn my wife, strangle my children, and cut my throat when they find their opportunity. Sooner or later, the light of common sense will make it clear to everyone that no liberty of conscience can be granted to men who are sworn to obey a pope who pretends to have the right to put to death those who differ from him in religion.
Rome held the American Constitution, its separation of church and state, and the privilege of people to enjoy freedom of religion in contempt.
Rome's reaction to the Constitution of the United States, of course, was not favorable because the whole papal system was built on the union of church and state. And for a country now to come into being, which was giving liberty and freedom to all, was certainly contrary to the principles of the papacy. And consequently, as a result, Rome has worked through the centuries to try to change that and to overthrow the Constitution of the United States and to once again bring into being that deadly wound is going to be healed, and when it is finally healed, it will once again be church and state united, and the church will use the political powers and the civil powers to enforce her religious dogmas.
Decade after decade, Rome silently infiltrated the highest echelons of American society, until finally the dragon-like qualities of America began to reveal its shadowy visage. Meanwhile, Rome had not forgotten her agenda to re-establish her authority in Europe. Using the same strategy she was employing in America, she set about infiltrating the religious and political powers on the continent. Her task was easier in that familiar environment and very quickly began to bear fruit. While she was actively involved in setting up a socialist regime in Russia, she just as ardently worked at establishing the occult, Jesuit-inspired system of Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany.